Welcome to Empowered by Illness, a podcast about living with genetic disorders. Episode 8, Hiding from the World. I wrote this article in January of last year. My daughter is now 15, but I think that this article still rings true. My daughter and I had an argument yesterday, and when I felt defeated, I came to the realization that we tend to hide who we are when it comes to our illnesses. As she explained to me that she feels so lonely, I thought at first it was because she's 13. We go through these things. I remember feeling that way as well when I was her age. But I prodded, we argued, and I had a sudden epiphany. She feels lonely because of these illnesses. We are limited to how much we're allowed to share with others for one reason or another. Sometimes it makes people uncomfortable. Sometimes they look at us weirdly as if what we're saying is in a completely different language. They look at us as if it's all fake. They aren't sympathetic. The list goes on and on. I was once asked, "What's the worst symptom you have?" in a condescending tone after explaining to someone why my illnesses prevent me from going back to work. My response, "I can't walk." So yeah, a pretty hardcore symptom. For me, I've learned that most people can only care as far as they can see. When it's out of mind, there is no empathy or sympathy because they don't live it. This is still a daily struggle for me, but it no longer hurts as much. For her, it's soul crushing and difficult to get close to people for fear of unsympathetic remarks, judgment, or worse, pity. Loneliness seems to consume you at every breath. You learn to train yourself to say, "We're good," when someone asks you, "How are y'all?" You brace yourself when someone asks, "How you hurt yourself this time?" In our house, this comment is a running joke. Our answers are usually something as simple as picking up a cup or walking across a room. This morning, for instance, my daughter moved to get out of bed and popped her back in a painful way, which in turn led me to showing her how to maneuver her body in order not to damage it further. I once dislocated my hip getting out of bed. I was 21 years old. The doctor didn't even believe me when I explained all I did was get out of bed for work. If you could see my face, you would see my eyes rolling. These issues are difficult to handle even for an adult. It's extremely complicated. So, as her mother, how do I teach her to work through this and to come to terms with the fact that she will have to learn her entire life how to survive, not only as a woman, but as a fragile bodied person? There is not a handbook, and most of the time I'm winging it, unfortunately. I try to find my boundaries physically, emotionally, and mentally and keep going, which is once again regrettably difficult for an adult. So imagine the difficulty of looking at my 13-year-old and telling her, "Don't be sad," or "Don't be depressed," or "Don't be this emotion or that emotion" about any of these harsh realities. Instead, I have to teach her how to balance these things, how to continue to speak about it as often as she can with those that she does trust and does feel close enough to share her feelings in order to feel safe. Just so everyone knows, it is never okay to tell someone not to feel emotions in the first place. I was just using this as a baseline to show what most people do in order to not have to deal, which is something I was taught as a child. Unlearning is part of all processes. To teach her that the pain we feel is normal for us. I say that with a huge sigh. To admit that to myself. The pain is forever. That we live with this pain forever. It is depressing, life-shattering, and a reminder of the fragility of humans as a whole. The ridiculousness that I have to teach my children to cope with daily pain, to figure out how to balance this life that we live with a regular one, and meeting people and doing, quote, normal things, end quote, finding a way to explain without actually explaining what the problem is that keeps us from sharing what our lives truly are. Hiding from the world may not be the right way to go about preserving our self peace, but learning our limits and not oversharing is a dance that we have to learn how to do among the many other dances in life. The only solace we have is in each other and finding safe spaces with others, which can be exhausting. Some family who understands, therapists that help us interpret our feelings and actually feel them, learn from them, cope with them, and sometimes in the oddest ways or times. So the next time you're arguing with someone or a person is having a hard day, try to figure out why or where these feelings are coming from so these issues don't pile up to cause more problems in the future. Side note, eventually we both were able to break the argument barrier, figure out why it turned into an argument in the first place, and started recognizing our triggers instead of hiding behind mean words while healing from those feelings. This was a true turning point in our relationship, as well as our lives. Understanding why communication breaks down into anger can be utilized in anyone's life. Faith G. Harper once said, quote, "Anger is a secondary emotion. The best model I have seen to explain anger uses the acronym AHEN. AHEN is as simple a conceptualization as you can get. Anger is triggered by hurt, expectations not met, needs not met. Of course, it is a little more complicated than that, in that we aren't usually limited to just one of those triggers, but a big glob ball of all of the above." End quote. Recognizing this takes time and progress is slow, but so worth it. So if you're hiding from the world, I hope you have the same solace as we do. And if not, I hope you can see where someone was trying to pull you out of hiding from the world. Till next time, be understanding with others. It truly is good for your health, as well as yourself. When subscribing to Empowered by Illness, you are not only spreading awareness of genetic disorders and chronic illness, but helping our family with medical bills and everyday necessities. So from the bottom of my heart, thank you for subscribing to Empowered by Illness.